I've always felt a little weird about that whole hard sell thing. It feels so pushy and manipulative. This idea of empowerment selling, though, that feels right?
Yeah.
But how do you actually, do that, put it into practice?
Well, Hormozy compares it to coaching, which I think is helpful. He thinks the best salespeople, they're like coaches, guiding people to make choices that are good for them.
So instead of trying to make them buy something they don't need, it's about understanding their needs and helping them see how your product or service can get them to their goals.
Exactly. It's asking the right questions to figure out their why. Why are they even looking for a solution? What's driving them? Then you show them how your product or service is how they get there.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So how does belief and trust, how does that fit into empowerment selling? Because Hormozy talks a lot about that.
He believes belief and trust, those are the foundation of any sale. You have to actually believe in what you're selling to really get that across to the customer. It's like building this a bridge of trust so they see you're on their side.
So if I'm not sure about my own product, they're going to pick up on that, huh? It's like they can smell it.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Hormozy actually says that most sales, they fail, not because of lack of skill, but because of shaky belief.
So step one is to really believe in what I'm selling. And that will show in my conversations with customers. It makes me think about all the times I've held back from recommending something because, I wasn't totally sold on it myself.
Yeah, that's perfect. And once you have that belief, you can handle those tougher parts of the conversation with more confidence.
Speaking of those tough parts, I really liked what he said about obstacles and objections. He says they're different. Obstacles are different from objections. How?
Obstacles are those things that come up before you even make an offer. Like when someone says, I just want to learn more, or I need to talk to my spouse. But those are often hiding a bigger issue they don't want to talk about.
Oh, yeah, I've definitely heard those. And usually I just take them at face value. So how can you dig a little deeper without seeming pushy?
Hormozy talks about using certain phrases to kind of gently nudge past those surface-level responses. So, for example, instead of just saying, okay, you want to learn more, you could say, I understand. A lot of people feel that way at first. But tell me, is gathering information something you do a lot? Or is there a specific problem you're trying to solve right now?
Ooh, that's good. You're acknowledging what they said, but also getting them to, the real issue.
Exactly. And by tackling those hidden worries, you're basically clearing the way to making the sale.
So it's about turning those obstacles into opportunities, right? Okay, you're hesitant. I get it. Let's figure out what's really going on so we can see if this is even right for you.
Exactly. And that takes us to another big part of Hormozy's approach, the power of asking tough questions.
Now, wait, you don't mean being aggressive or grilling them, do you?
No, not at all. It's more about asking questions that make them confront their own limiting beliefs, really get at what motivates them. He calls it pride-proofing.
Pride-proofing. Okay, I got to hear more about that.
It's about pushing them past their comfort zones, past those surface-level excuses to get to the core of what's holding them back. Like, for instance, if someone says they can't afford your product, you might ask, at what point would your beliefs about money become, unreasonable? Would it be crazy to think you could find a way to invest, say, $100 a month if it meant achieving their desired outcome?
Whoa, okay, that is a tough question. But I see your point. It makes them really look at what matters and see the gap between what they want and what they're doing.
Precisely. It's not to make them feel bad, but to help them see that their beliefs might be holding them back. And this ties back to that coaching idea.
It's like you're not just trying to close a deal, but you're helping them break through their own barriers.
Right. And to understand those barriers, Hormozy has this analogy of peeling back the layers of an onion. He says you got to dig past those surface concerns, like time or money, to get to the core reasons for their hesitation.
So what are those, deeper anxieties hiding under the surface, in those onion layers?
He talks about 5 core anxieties that usually stop people from taking action: time, value, fit, authority, and self-doubt. Let's start with time.
Right, the classic I don't have time excuse, guilty as charged. So how do you deal with that in a sales conversation?
Well, his point is you're always going to be busy, right? It's not about finding more time. It's about deciding what's important. So instead of just accepting I don't have time, you can ask, I get it, we all have busy lives. But if you could just snap your fingers and have insert desired outcome without needing any extra time, would you do it?
That's good. It makes them see that it's not really about time. It's about wanting it enough. If they really want it, they'll make it happen.
Exactly. And then there's value. This one usually sounds like it's too expensive.
Oh, yeah, I've heard that one a million times. How do you respond to that without just sounding like you're defending your price?
It's not about defending the price. It's about uh, reframing it, focusing on the value they get. You want them to see that the price is just an exchange for the change they'll experience. So instead of getting defensive, you could say something like, I understand cost is a factor, but let me ask you, have you ever spent money on something that seemed expensive at first but ended up being like the best investment ever?
I like that. You're getting them to think about those times they took a chance and it paid off big time. It changes the focus from the upfront cost to the long-term gain.
Exactly. Now, fit. This one's about whether the prospect feels like it's, the right match for them.
So they might say something like, I'm not sure this is right for me, or I need to do more research. How do you approach those?
First, you want to acknowledge their feelings, that finding the right fit is important. Then you can talk about testimonials, case studies, examples of people just like them who have succeeded with your product.
So it's about showing them they're not alone. Other people had the same doubts and still got amazing results.
Right. That social proof can be really powerful.
Okay, what about authority? This is when they need someone else's permission to buy, right?
Yeah, exactly. It could be a spouse, a business partner, even a friend whose opinion they really value.
So they might say, like, I need to talk to my wife about it. How do you handle that without sounding like you're, I don't know, trying to cause problems in their relationship?
It's tricky, but you can encourage them to think of it as getting support, not permission. You could say, I understand. It's great that you value your wife's input. But how do you think she'd feel knowing you're taking steps to achieve their desired outcome? Do you think she'd be supportive of you trying to improve your life or your business or whatever it is?
Ooh, that's smart. It shifts it from getting permission to getting support, which feels much better.
Right. And lastly, we have self-doubt. This is when they just doubt themselves, their ability to succeed or actually use the product effectively.
Self-doubt. The struggle is real. It can be such a blocker, especially with big decisions. How do you help someone through that without just sounding like you're giving them empty pep talks?
First, acknowledge their feelings. Let them know it's normal to have doubts. Then you can share stories of other people who had similar challenges and still found success with your product or service.
So like, hey, I get it. You're scared you might fail, but look at all these others who are in the same place and they did it. You can too.
Exactly. It's giving them proof that it's possible, even with their doubts.
And that's what's so great about empowerment selling, right? It's not about tricking people. It's about helping them unlock their potential and reach their goals.
And to show how all this works in real life, Hormozi shares this case study in the video. He calls it the diagnostic sale. Are you familiar with that?
I don't think so. What is a diagnostic sale and how's it different from, a normal sales process?
It's a cool approach where you actually start by diagnosing the problem before suggesting the solution. And ready to talk about the diagnostic sale. This case study from Hormozi's video, it really stuck with me. It sounds like a super powerful way to approach selling, but I'm still a bit hazy on how it actually works. Well, it's kind of like when a doctor diagnoses a patient, before they give him a treatment plan. They wouldn't just throw a bunch of medicine at someone without figuring out their symptoms and what's causing the illness.
Right. Makes sense. You got to know what you're dealing with before you can offer a real solution.
Exactly. So with a diagnostic sale, you start by really understanding the prospect, their situation, their challenges, what they're aiming for, even their fears. You ask questions that get to the root of the problem, not just the surface stuff.
So like you're playing detective almost, gathering clues and putting the pieces together.
That's a great way to put it. And Hormozi actually used this approach to help a service business that was struggling to grow, their recurring revenue. They were selling individual transactions, but not really turning those customers into long-term clients.
Yeah, that's a problem a lot of businesses face. What did Hormozi do to change that?
He started with what he calls secret shopping. Basically, he pretended to be a potential customer to experience their sales process firsthand. He wanted to see, where the holes were, the opportunities, and what was stopping them from closing deals.
Wow, he's putting himself right in the customer's shoes.
Yeah.
Smart. So what did he find?
The main issue wasn't their product, but how they packaged and presented it. They were stuck on selling those one-time transactions instead of offering ongoing solutions, which meant they were missing out on a lot of potential income.
Ah, I see. So they needed to shift their whole thinking from just fixing the problem at hand to providing ongoing support and building those lasting relationships.
Exactly. And that's a big takeaway for anyone in sales. It's
Yeah.
not just about closing the deal. It's about creating value for the customer and helping them succeed over the long run.
Makes me think about all those times I've bought something and then felt totally lost afterwards. Like, okay, I bought your thing. Now what?
That's exactly what Hormozy wants to avoid. He wants businesses to create that seamless experience where the customer feels supported every step of the way.
So how did he help this business switch from selling one-off transactions to selling those ongoing solutions?
He helped them change their whole offer and pricing structure. Instead of just offering single services, they created membership programs, with ongoing support, training, and resources.
Okay, that makes sense. So they went from a transactional relationship to more of a partnership where they're invested in the customer's long-term success.
Exactly. Another key part was anticipating and addressing those core anxieties we talked about earlier. Remember the layers of the onion?
Yeah, those deeper issues that people don't always talk about right away.
Right. So he helped them tackle those worries head on before they even came up as objections. For example, if a prospect was worried about having enough time, they built flexibility into those memberships. If someone was concerned about the price, they focused on the long-term value and the return on investment.
So instead of waiting for the objections, they're preemptively dealing with them. That's like diffusing a bomb before it goes off.
Precisely. By being proactive, they build trust and make it easier to close the deal.
This diagnostic sale framework is really interesting. It's like you're not just selling, you're solving a problem. You're building a relationship, becoming a trusted advisor.
That's a great way to put it. And once you've got this diagnostic sale down, the next step is scaling it to the whole team. That's where Hormozy's 6Cs come in.
Oh, yeah, the 6Cs. You mentioned that earlier. It sounded pretty intense, like a whole system for managing a sales team.
It is intense, but it's also super effective. Hormozy believes building a top-notch sales team isn't just about individual skills. It's about creating a whole culture of success.
Okay, I'm listening. Tell me about these 6Cs. How do they create that winning culture?
Well, the first C is closure sequence. This is about having a structured, question-based process for the entire sales conversation from start to finish.
Like a roadmap for the sales call. So everyone's on the same page and following the same process.
Right. It takes out the guesswork and gives them a clear path to success, especially for newer salespeople.
Okay, that makes sense. What's the second C?
The second one is consistent daily training and conviction. We were talking before about how important belief is in selling, right?
Yeah.
Well, this C is all about making sure your whole team has that belief.
So it's not just teaching them the techniques, it's instilling that deep belief in what they're selling. How do you do that?
Hormozy's big on daily practice. His sales teams, they spend time each day role-playing, practicing those obstacle overcomings, and reading customer testimonials, all to reinforce that belief in the product.
It's like training for a marathon. You got to put in the work every day.
Exactly. And speaking of reviewing performance, the next C is call recordings.
Ah, yes, recording and analyzing those sales conversations. I love that because it takes the guesswork out of coaching.
Right. Instead of relying on opinions, you have actual evidence to back up your feedback.
Yeah.
You can see what went well, where things went wrong, and what needs work.
It's like watching game film, after a football game.
Exactly. And that brings us to the fourth C, communication cycles. This is about having that constant feedback loop within the team.
So not just those yearly performance reviews or like random pep talks. You're giving regular feedback, celebrating wins, and tackling challenges right away.
Exactly. Hormozy recommends daily wrap-ups, weekly team meetings, and individual coaching. It's about creating a culture of open communication and constantly getting better.
This is making me realize that building a great sales team isn't just about hiring stars. It's about creating an environment where they can thrive.
Exactly. Now, this next C might be a bit harder to stomach, but it's important. Cuts.
Cuts. Oh, wow. That sounds kind of harsh.
It can be, but Hormozy's all about quickly removing people who aren't performing or just aren't a good fit for the team.
I bet that's tough for some managers. No one likes to fire people.
It's definitely not easy, but it's key to keeping a high-performing culture. One negative person or someone who isn't pulling their weight can bring the whole team down.
Like weeding a garden, you got to get rid of the bad plants so the others can grow?
Exactly. And lastly, we have competition and career path. This is all about creating a motivating environment where people can excel and move up.
So like a little friendly competition is a good thing.
Absolutely. Hormozy suggests having contests and leaderboards to encourage that healthy competition and recognize the top performers.
Makes sense. A bit of pressure can bring out people's best. What about the career path part?
It's about showing them how they can advance within the company. So if they work hard and reach their goals, they can move up and take on more responsibility.
So they see a future for themselves there.
Exactly. And that sense of progress is super motivating. Now, if you look at all 6 C's together, it's a complete approach to building an amazing sales organization.
Like a well-oiled machine where everyone's working in sync, supporting each other, and pushing for excellence.
Right. And that brings us back to Hormozi's main message. Selling is about empowerment, about building belief, and truly helping people reach their goals.
I'm seeing sales in a whole new way now. It doesn't have to be that, sleazy, pushy thing. It can be a way to do good, to help people transform their lives. This whole deep dive has been a real eye-opener.
It's been great exploring these ideas with you. Now, what does this mean for our listeners out there trying to boost their own sales? What's the takeaway from all this?
Let's talk about that as we head into the last part of our deep dive. Wow, we've covered so much, from those gasps to pride-proofing to the diagnostic sale and those intense 6 Cs.
It's a lot to take in.
It really is. If you had to give our listeners one piece of advice, one thing to focus on, what would it be?
I'd say shift your thinking from selling to empowering.
Yeah, that's been a recurring theme today. But what does that actually look like, in a conversation with a potential customer?
See yourself as a coach, someone who's helping them find a solution that's actually good for them. When you truly believe in your product and you see yourself as like a guide, helping people reach their goals, that pressure to close the deal, it kind of fades away. It's not a battle anymore.
It goes back to what we were saying about belief. If you don't really believe in what you're offering, they'll pick up on that.
Oh, absolutely. You can't fake conviction. People see right through that.
So much of what Hormozi talks about is the opposite of those old school hard sell tactics. This idea of asking hard questions, and people might think that's, aggressive or even rude.
It's not about being aggressive. It's about challenging them, helping them break out of those limiting beliefs they have. It's like tough love, but in a good way.
Tough love with a goal. So what can our listeners do, right now, to start using these ideas?
Start changing how you think about your sales conversations. Focus on empowering the customer. Instead of listing features and benefits, ask questions to figure out what they really want. What are their goals? What problems are they facing? Once you get their why, you can show them how your product or service is the way to get there.
It's like that diagnostic sale we talked about. Don't just jump into your pitch. Take time to understand the problem before you offer a solution.
Exactly. And don't forget those core anxieties. Time, value, fit, authority, self-doubt. Address them before they even become objections. Work them into your conversations naturally.
So if someone says, I don't have time, you could say, I know what you mean, everyone's busy. But what if this could save you 10 hours a week? Wouldn't that be worth a look?
Exactly. You're not ignoring their concern. You're showing them how your product can actually address it.
This deep dive has been amazing. I'm honestly thinking about sales in a whole new way now, both in my business and just in life. It's crazy how a shift in perspective can change everything.
It's been great chatting with you about this. I hope our listeners feel empowered to go out there and use these principles in their own sales.
Before we wrap up, is there a final thought you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Yeah, I'd ask them this. If you could make yourself and your team believe in your product without a doubt, how much do you think your sales would change?
Wow, that's a powerful question. It's not just about believing in the product, it's about believing in your ability to help people. Having that deep conviction that what you're offering can really make a difference.
And when you have that, everything changes. Your energy, your words, your customers.
You feel it.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. We'll be back next time with another great episode. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep crushing it.